Now that we have Netlify set up and we have a website already created and auto-deploying to the internet with a custom URL, we are going to focus now on actually building the website out, and we're going to do some walkthroughs in regards to HTML to begin with. And then we'll move on to CSS and JavaScript as we progress through the course. Let's start off with HTML. Now, as of the last video, we have our GitHub account, we have our Netlify website with auto-deploy set up, and we have our URL that points to our website. Right now we got a page not found because we do not have an indexed HTML, because our repository only has a gitignore, a license, and a readme. There's no HTML folder in there, or file, sorry. And we know that a website requires at least an index.html in order for the browser, or the browser request for the website, to be responded to by the server, because the server is going to look for an index.html to send back to the browser, because browsers understand HTML. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use Visual Studio Code for this exercise, so make sure you've got Visual Studio Code installed, open it up, and then I am relying on the fact that you already have your repository cloned to your local machine. If you don't remember how to do that, make sure you go back to your Git videos, understand how to clone, make sure you get the repository, this one, that we tied to our Netlify account to this website. Make sure you've got that repository downloaded. And then let's go ahead and open up that repository. Now, in my user account, I use dev, and then in this case, Neumont for my screencasts. And here is my repository, so web dev portfolio. I'm going to go ahead and open up the folder for that Git repository, and you'll see the 3 files that we have in our repository right here. You will now see them inside of your Visual Studio Code. Now we're going to jump into our HTML page, but what we want to do first is let's talk about what HTML is. And for that, we're going to use a little bit of a demo here. And the demo is we're going to use Microsoft Word. And we're going to help you understand really what HTML is. And to put it simply, HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, all it really is it is a markup language that helps define the structure of a document that is sent across the internet. And it creates a uniform standard that all browsers understand and can interpret and render for a user. And it doesn't matter where that HTML page came from. It could come from China, it could come from South America, it could come from Canada or the United States or the Pacific Islands. It doesn't matter where the server is located, where the developer is, or who created the website, or what language they speak, because they are all going to be following the HTML standard when creating a document for the internet that is meant to be sent across the internet. So with that understanding, and HTML being the standard, we just need to learn the basic tags of HTML and the basic structure of HTML in order to write HTML. Now, the reason why I've got Microsoft Word open is because the reality is HTML is kind of patterned after word processing documents that were created, back in the early days of computers, when word processors were first installed and we had our first graphical user interfaces for word processors like WordPerfect and Word and a couple of the older ones. And the reason why I say they're patterned after that is that if we have a document open and I say this is web development, and then I have another set of text right here, I really love web development. It is the most awesome development type there is. You can see that we have kind of a structure here, a structure for the document. We've got what looks like, related text. There's a space below that text, and then some more related text in this document. So the document is defined as this page, and then we have this text. Well, if I want this text to be more important than other text, I can set that text to be a heading, and then I suddenly have bigger text. It may have a different color, and it may have a different font weight. And this creates formatting within this document structure in order to tell parts of the document structure apart from other parts of the document structure. And visually we can tell that this text is more important than this text, and therefore, because we're all familiar with Word documents, we know this is probably a title or a subtitle or something that whoever created the document wants us to know about. And at the same time, we can also create lists, right? We can say, what are the parts of web development? Well, we can say HTML, we can say CSS, we can say JavaScript, we can say a web server, right? And most importantly, the internet. So we can create lists, and we see that these different structures within the document mean different things to us. And really, the creators of HTML, all they did was took what we were used to doing inside of Word documents or word processors, and they just converted that to the internet because everybody's familiar with it and everybody's used to it. Therefore, it's a good standard to follow. And so, getting rid of this Word document, let's go ahead and talk about HTML and how, very similar to a Word document in a word processor, all we're doing is building the structure of that document using HTML tags to define the parts of the document and give them different importance and meaning. So in our website right here, let's go ahead and create a new file. So go ahead and click on the new file icon. And we're going to do an index.html. And this, of course, index.html on a website is the root document of a website. That is part of the website standard, that when a web request comes in for just the domain name, there's an implied slash at the end of right here, at the end of the domain. And that implied slash says, go to the root of the website that is being asked for and provide the root document for the set of documents that make up that website. And because no path, such as like this, about.html is defined right here, this is a document, a specific document you're looking for. Because we don't have a document in there, really it's saying, go find me the index.html. All right, so index.html, let's talk about the parts of an index.html document. First off, we need to declare the document type. And since we are operating in HTML, we are going to use an HTML document type. Now, there are other document types used for different things on the internet, but we're not going to get into that now. We're focusing solely on HTML documents for websites. So make sure you always add your doc type so the browser knows exactly what type of document it's receiving from the web server. And now, just like in our Word document, let me go ahead and pull that back up. Just like in our Word document, we need to define the document itself. And in the standard, to define the actual document, we need a root element for the document. In other words, this HTML tag, it is saying everything within me, within this element, belongs to this HTML document. And now, inside of this HTML, we have two primary sections that are really important to us. There is the head of the document, and then we have the body of the document. Now let's talk about the two. The head of the document, really what it does is it provides metadata or information about the document that the browser can use to do different things. One of the metadata that's provided inside of the head is the title. And the title, let's go ahead and put down my first website. So that's going to be the title. The title right here is metadata about this document. And so, although this is my first website, if I wanted to be super specific, I could say this is the home or home page, because it's my index, it's the root of my website. Now this title is actually what you see up here on website, when you pull up a website, on the tab in your browser. This is the title that you see up here in the tab. So when we deploy this, we will see up here, instead of page not found, we will be seeing my first website -home up here in the tab. Inside of the head, you can also add other metadata to the page, and these are going to be in meta tags. And inside these meta tags, there are attributes that you can use, like title, and then you can do content, but we won't get into meta tags right now. Let's just understand, for the simplicity of deploying our first website, we've got a head, which only contains metadata about the website. The title gives us the title in the tab. Now the body portion of the HTML document, the body is the important part when it comes to the browser itself. Everything inside of the body tag is what is displayed visually inside of our document. The majority of it is, and as you get into more complex web pages, you'll understand what I mean. But right now, everything inside of this body tag are the visual elements that are inside and make up the visual display of our website. And we're going to see how that works here in a minute. So let's start with our body tag, and let's break down really quick what makes up an HTML tag. Now, you've seen me build some tags here on the fly. A tag is the standard marker within the markup language. That's why it's called a markup language. These are the markers that define parts of the document. Now, these you don't see in the web page. You don't see greater than, less thans with words in them. That's because the browser is actually reading this document from top to bottom, left to right. And as it runs into these tags, it is building a tree of nodes that make up this document. And each one of these tags has a very specific meaning, telling the browser where stuff goes on the website or what the structure of the document or page is. So everything in the head is invisible because it's metadata, other than the title gets put in here. And then everything in the body actually shows up down here. So let's add one element really quick. And we are going to do just like we did in our Word document right here. And let's go ahead and put in a title, so a heading. And right here we used a heading 1 to highlight this text to be this size and this color. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we add a heading 1, which is the H1 tag in HTML. And then we do the same thing. This is web development, so let's do that. This is web development. Since it's a heading, we probably want to capitalize these things. All right. So now, we've created our basic HTML document. This is like probably the most basic HTML document you will ever make in your development career from this point forward. And to demonstrate that this web page is the structure that is then seen inside of our browser right here on our page after it gets deployed, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make sure we commit these changes to our Git repository. Again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, make sure you go complete the Git module. So let's go ahead and get to our repository. I like to keep my repositories in a folder called dev under my user account on my computer. So I'm going to do cd dev. Make sure I'm in the right place. And then because these are all screencasts for Neumont, I'm going to go ahead and go into a Neumont folder. And then right there, there's my web dev portfolio repository. I'm going to go into it. And now, let's double check. Yep, now you see you've got your license, your README, and the new index file that we just created. So let's go ahead and commit that so we can get it deployed to our website. So let's do git status, see what's changed. We see that we've got an untracked index.html file, so let's do git add. And then let's do git status and make sure it was added. So we got a new file added, so let's do git commit. Add a message to it, so -m, and then say added index.html. And now we've got those changes committed to our local repository, so let's get them up to GitHub using Git Push. Now it's been pushed up to our GitHub account. And right here, if we go ahead and refresh, we should see that we've got some commits. So we just committed 25 seconds ago. If we go back, we now see an index.html. So let's refresh our Netlify. And we should see that a new push was added to our Netlify. And it has been published, and what was added was an index.html. So if we go refresh our web page, we should see this is web development. We now have our first web page. Awesome. We understand a little bit about HTML. We've deployed a web page to our production website. We'll call this video good.